This next chapter is all about touchpads. Our touchpads are made in our touchpad shop in Loveland, Colorado. They're very much an artisan product. They're all handmade. On the top of the touchpad here, we have what we call the block. The block has a orange self-healing membrane. The touchpads do have an air bladder inside of them. When we ship them out from the factory, we suck all the air out of them, so they're very stiff and tight. We provide a touchpad meter and a vacuum pump, a hand vacuum pump, to help regulate the pressure within the touchpad. So the instructions that come out with the touchpad ask you to vent the touchpad. In order to do that, there's a 22 gauge hypodermic needle up in the top of the touchpad meter. You'll just take that, insert it into the middle of that self-healing membrane, and just let it sit there. What's happening right now is that open-celled foam is wanting to expand, so it's slowly drawing air into the touchpad through that hypodermic needle. I would leave the needle in there 8 to 10 minutes and should acclimate to the barometric pressure of wherever you're at. Along the other side of the block, we have the cord that's used to plug the touchpad in. It does have a 2-pronged banana plug. It is not polarized, so there's no positive, no negative. It's just a switch connection. I'll illustrate that by plugging it into the touchpad meter in the top. The touchpad meter is on a timer, so press the red button, you'll see the power light come on. And then I can press the front of the touchpad in different areas to make sure that it's working correctly. There is also a tape switch along the front rounded edge for the backstroke. So this touchpad is working properly. If we ever come to the touchpad and we see that those red lines are all the way across or even partially across with nobody touching it, that's what we call shorted. So the touchpad would be shorted, so it would not function, it would not open and close. If that circumstance ever arises, pull that touchpad out of the water, put a replacement one in its place, continue to run your swim meet. Take the touchpad that is shorted back out, put it on the rack, and this is kind of a two-person process. You're going to want to put that hypodermic needle back in, and you'll want to let it sit there for probably 15-20 minutes. What that is going to do is it's going to allow enough air to get in here so that those screens have a chance of unbinding. So you'll just kind of tap the front of the touchpad, tell it what a good touchpad it is, you really appreciate it working today, and at some point those screens are going to unbind. So when you turn on your touchpad meter, it'll look like that. Now we probably have too much air in the touchpad, and when we put it in the water, the bottom's going to want to float up, or you'll see a kind of a bubble right here at the water's edge, an air bubble. So if we've got too much air in the touchpad, we got to remove that air. And that's where our vacuum pump comes into play. And this is kind of the two-person operation that I was talking about. Again, we'll go to our touchpad meter. We'll just kind of put the acrylic hose around the needle to get it out. And then what I like to see is to have one person insert that needle and kind of hold it right here while the other person squeezes the hand pump. The hand pump does have 2 settings. It has vacuum and it has pressure. I never recommend forcing air into the touchpad, but do have it on vacuum. It is kind of a lengthy process depending on how much air you have in the touchpad. You're going to want to be able to use both hands, but something like that doesn't do a whole lot. If we want to long, even strokes, and then you're just kind of monitoring the front of the touchpad as you're doing that, feeling it and using that in conjunction with your touchpad meter to see when it becomes sensitive to the touch again. And that's the process of removing air and adding air to a touchpad. I want to talk a little bit about care and maintenance of the touchpads. touchpads can be left in the water for a week or two at a time if you have a bunch of meets that are consecutive. Otherwise, the touchpad should be out of the water and hanging on the touchpad caddy. When installing or uninstalling the touchpads from the water, we never ever want to grab it by this cord. Cord is secured into the block fairly well, but this was never designed as a method of pulling up the touchpad. If we do pull on this hard and it comes out of the block here, the whole touchpad will have to be sent back into Colorado Time Systems and repaired. So these things aren't exactly easy to ship or cheap to ship, so probably a good idea to pick it up by the edge. The banana plug that's on the end of the touchpad, we want to make sure is free of debris and is nice and shiny. Our system runs on very low DC voltage, so any corrosion that builds up around the pins here or in the deck plates that gets between those two surfaces can cause resistance to build up, and when resistance builds up, the voltage drops and the device can't function properly. So alcohol in a toothbrush after each meet, and then either a dielectric grease or some kind of dielectric substance to coat the pins before the next use. Last thing I want to cover on the touchpad is the touchpad brackets and how to install a touchpad. Here at this pool in Arlington, we have a Murtha pool, so you'll see the touchpad bracket has a hook side Velcro here, and it's got a little ABS lip on some acrylic. What we're going to do is we're going to take these brackets. One will go on the very edge, just like that. And every consecutive one after that is going to go right under the lane line. There is a rivet right here in the middle that will go right on the lane line. On the touchpad, we have corresponding soft side Velcro. So if we look under here, we have 3 places where we have the soft side Velcro. It's usually a 2-person process. We put the touchpad in, line the target up with the target that's on the pool, and just kind of step on the top of the touchpad, getting that Velcro to engage. Bring it around, kind of get some of the excess out of there, and then plug it into touchpad. That's how you install your touchpads.